Hey everybody, welcome to week 2 of CRJU 302 policing. Two sections of this. I'm only going to use one video this week. That I wanted to take some time to talk briefly about your assignments in week 2. One section will have a written assignment. It's fairly short, 250 to 750 words. If you go over, not a big deal. Just remember that these old eyes got to read it all. And don't be misled by the 250 word criteria. I want you to be fairly detailed in these, and I want you to think about the topic. I want you to support your work. If I think about it, I guess, is to critically think. What else is there? Are there additional questions that can be asked? And every assignment will have that. I just want you to work on those things and maybe get it, fine tune it. Get critical thinking, because we are in an era, and any era for leaders that have to think critically, and I want you to start to develop that. The writing tasks, the writing skills. I expect you to write well. If you're in the basic writing course, I believe it's 110 right now, you're going over some stuff that you need to be up to speed with right now in this course, APA formatting. Go to Purdue OWL, and that's the Purdue University Online Writing Lab. Left-hand column has different formatting styles. APA is one of them. Go there and you can see how to format, how to do your in-text citations, how to do your reference list. Each of the written assignments for both classes are going to require a APA compliant face page, and the headers, the required headers for your narrative, and then a separate reference page or works cited. There's several different ways that you see that, but references is the APA preferred. So that's for the writing assignment. If you've come from a 2-year school, understand that there is a step up in what's required of you from a 2-year to a 4-year. And I really want your skills to blossom. And I'm going to be pretty harsh on the writing for both classes. Don't get frustrated. Just keep trying. Look at the comments that I make. I spend a ton of time grading papers to try to give you decent comments. In a different class, I had a writing assignment yesterday, and I read one, and the person had some great ideas, but their organization was just awful, and the organization didn't deal with the topic. So what would usually take me a moderate period of time to correct took me about 3 times as long, just trying to give her comments that can be used later to write more efficiently. Now, the discussion boards. You have, each class is going to have several discussion boards. I don't want these to be looked at as being something you can breeze in and breeze out. I want you to think about your topics. Again, I'm going to be harsh on grading, but I want you to use some good thought and put some good thought into it. The one section has a discussion board on the rule of law. Critically important. And you hear it all the time. You hear it in the news. You hear people saying, well, this person or that country or this country doesn't follow a rule of law. I want you to come away from the discussion board with a good idea of what the rule of law is and how it relates to society. There's 2 general ideas of the rule of law. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But that's what this discussion board is about. Again, make sure that you cover the topic. Second thing is use references, support your work. Don't say, I think. Say, according to Gibbs, 2019, if that's the citation, the rule of law is X, Y, and Z. um, as opposed to saying, I think the rule of law is X, Y, and Z. Because honestly, not trying to be harsh, but your opinion is not authoritative yet. That's going to be a few years, a few classes, and maybe some letters at the end of your name later that your opinion is going to be authoritative. So make sure that you support your work with outside sources. And then your follow-up posts. Follow-up posts, make sure that you put some thought into those. They need to be substantive. I'll downgrade you if they're not. If they basically affirm what the other person's writing. Joe, great job. You put a lot of thought into it. This is a really important point that I hadn't considered, and thank you so much for your work. That's a 0 points, and they add up. And don't lose easy points, because if you go, you know what, I won't do the follow-up posts, or I won't do the initial post this week. It's too much work, not enough benefit. I gotta tell you, every semester I have students that miss the next higher grade by 5 points, 6 points, 10 points. And you go back through the course and you see where they've passed on doing some assignments because they were busy or something. So the last thing with discussion boards, each post needs to be on a different day. Unless, of course, you post more than the initial and 2 follow-ups. If you post the initial and 3 or 4 follow-ups, as long as you post it on 3 separate days, you're fine. Hard, fast rule. Tons of people lose points for it. Kind of think maybe they think, that guy's not going to take the time to look. And unfortunately, I got a lot of time. So I do look. But just again, don't lose easy points. Make sure they're on different days. We should be fine. Let's talk about the first week of the course. And this is Law Enforcement in a Democratic Society. They come across with some important issues, things that you hear about. Legitimacy is probably the first words that you hear. And it's the idea that when people think that they're being governed fairly, they believe the government is legitimate. And that goes through a whole bunch of different contexts. A fairly loud discussion now about changing the economic platform of the country. And I say it's fairly loud because there's a lot of people that think that platform should change dramatically. When you look at that kind of a change, you have to see if that group feels that the current government itself is legitimate. Law enforcement. Difficult part for law enforcement is anytime they go out and use force, there's a great chance somebody's going to be standing there with a video camera or a cell phone. And you take most uses of force, and you break them down into 2 or 3 second, or 10 second, or 30 second videos, they can look pretty bad, especially when there's when the tools that are selected or available become a problem or problematic. Anytime the cops use a baton, it looks horrible. It just looks awful. And imagine if it was a legitimate, 100% necessary use, but you took that, 10-second clip and showed, the person cowering and getting hit while he's still armed. So uses of force are something that we're going to talk about, but they also have a tendency, they can very seriously erode public confidence. The next major topic in this section is going to be the rule of law. Rule of law is another topic that you hear a lot about. You look at the PowerPoint. PowerPoint has a version of the rule of law a definition. It's different than you'll see in the book. So as you are looking at the book, and when you go in to do the the discussion board, go to the discussion board, that's the topic that you're gonna be looking at. I want you to look at the subtle differences between the two. They have similarities and they have some differences. And then there's also the idea of, is one definition an unrealistic expectation? And that's what I'd like you to explore in the discussion board, and then also as you read the chapters. The final thing that I really want to talk about at any quick length is the idea of social control. And social control is a critical concept that you'll have to deal with. And there's two types. There's informal and formal social control. You get a writing assignment on it this week, and you might have to do a little bit about outside research, maybe look ahead a touch, a chapter, to get some definitions. For your writing assignments for both classes, one thing I would think about is make sure that you include definitions, and then you start to talk about the issues, so that you make sure the reader who understands what you're talking about. And that's just not for me, but that's for any reader in any course, or anytime you write something for publication. People have to understand that first. Informal, formal social control, very interesting ideas. I mean, we live in what's known as a culture of lawfulness. Most people wouldn't hurt anybody if they had the chance. The difficult part is, people do. There's predators. There are people who take advantage of others, solely because they can. So as you look at the topics for this week, make sure you take some time on it. There's a discussion about the different agencies. You definitely have to read that, because it may appear in exams that will be coming up here in about 4 more weeks. So make sure that you're on those. Hopefully I won't take as long for other videos for the week, but I want to make sure that you guys have that idea of what I'm looking for in the assignments. That being said,